When you think about fear, what comes to mind? Probably a racing heart, right? Sweaty palms. But what if I told you that some fears do the exact opposite? As you can see, not all fears are created equal, and the difference is pretty fascinating. So let's just dive right into the central puzzle here. Why is it that one person sees a needle and just passes out, while another person spots a spider and gets that classic jolt of adrenaline, where their heart feels like it's going to beat out of their chest? They're both called phobias, but the reactions couldn't be more different. So what's actually going on here? Okay, before we solve this thing, let's make sure we're all on the same page with our terms. We're talking about something called a specific phobia. Now, according to the clinical definition, this is not just being a little creeped out by something. It is a powerful, intense, overwhelming fear that actually makes you go out of your way to avoid the thing you're afraid of. Right. The key to understanding this whole fainting versus racing heart mystery lies in how phobias are officially classified. It turns out there isn't just one kind of phobia, there are actually 5 distinct subtypes. And here they are, the 5 official subtypes. You've got your fears of animals, spiders, dogs, snakes. Then there's the natural environment, like a fear of heights or big storms. You've got situational fears, like flying or being in an elevator. And then we have our prime suspect for the fainting mystery, the blood injection injury type. And of course, there's an other category that kind of catches everything else. So how should we think about these 5 categories? Well, probably the best way to picture it is to imagine they're all different alarm systems inside a house. Each one is designed to signal danger, but as we're about to see, they are definitely not wired the same way. And one of the biggest differences between these systems is when they come online. Some of them are active from a really, really young age, while others tend to develop much later in life. For instance, fears of animals and blood, those tend to pop up in childhood. You can think of them as the factory-installed alarms. But situational fears, like a fear of flying, they often show up later, maybe in our teens or early 20s. They're kind of like advanced systems we install as our world gets a bit more complex. But timing isn't the only thing that's different. Let's get back to our original question. While most of these alarms trigger that classic fight or flight response, speeding up your heart, one of them does something completely different. And here's the scientific answer. The blood injection injury phobia is, and I'm quoting the research here, uniquely characterized by a vasovagal fainting response. Now, that's the clinical term for fainting. And it's not just a quirk, it's the one defining reaction that puts this phobia in a totally separate category. Sticking with our house analogy, this is the only alarm that's wired to occasionally trip the main circuit breaker. So instead of just sounding a siren, it can actually shut the whole system down, which leads to that sudden drop in blood pressure that causes you to faint. And get this is pretty wild. This unique fainting alarm is also the most likely to be passed down in families. It has a 59% rate of genetic transmission, which is remarkably high. It really suggests there's a strong biological reason why this specific alarm is wired to trip the circuit breaker. So we know these alarm systems exist, but how do they even get programmed in the first place? I mean, if it's not all genetics, what is it that teaches us to be afraid? Well, researchers have identified 3 main ways that these fear alarms get programmed into our brains. First up is the most obvious one, direct conditioning. This is just learning from a direct negative experience. You're bitten by a dog as a kid, and your brain wires that dog alarm to go off in the future. It's a pretty direct cause and effect.
Second, we can actually learn fear just by watching other people. This is called vicarious acquisition. So if you grow up watching a parent absolutely panic every single time they see a spider, your own spider alarm can become programmed to react the same way, even if you've never had a bad experience yourself. And third, we have informational transmission. This is when we learn to be afraid simply by being told something is dangerous. Constantly hearing news reports about plane crashes can program a fear of flying just by linking airplanes to a sense of danger in our minds. So the crucial point here is this: phobia is not one single thing. It's really just a label for a collection of highly specific, totally distinct internal alarm systems. Each one is programmed differently, it comes online at a different point in our lives, and it can have a dramatically different reaction, from fight and flight all the way to faint. Which leaves us with a final, really fascinating question. If our internal alarm system for fear is this complex and this varied, what other protective mechanisms are running in the background of our minds, just hiding in plain sight? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.